Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
Welcome you guys to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
Yeah, welcome to episode number 1. I guess,
wow.
As they say, you've got to start somewhere.
The genesis, right? We've had many of those moments over the years. This one may be the one I'm most excited about, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started this podcast because we've been talking about doing a podcast forever.
Yes.
Now, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is not because we like to hear ourselves speak.
Definitely not.
It's because we want to make sure that people are really getting a great understanding of what health truly means and how to live a happy, healthy life.
Right.
Doesn't matter where it is that we travel to, where we go. People are always asking us, what are the things that we need to do in order to be healthy? And a better question is asking them, what are you doing right now to be healthy? And the reality is that a lot of people, and I say a lot, but most people don't really know how to have a healthy life. And I think that comes from not really having a firm foundation in the philosophy of what health even means.
No, I think and our hope for this podcast is that we can maybe answer some of those questions that a lot of times we kind of can gloss over and go to the macro versus getting to, wait, what's the basics of this thing? What is health? What does that even mean? How do you even know if you're healthy? Is it because you feel good? Is it because now you're no longer healthy because you've been diagnosed with some type of illness or chronic disease? So I'm really hoping and believing we're going to bring some real value and answer a lot of these questions, and people are going to feel more empowered, like we say, to become the hero of your own health journey and no longer be a victim to the lies, to the confusion, and really in a system in America, if we're honest, has really let us down.
Yeah, and it's let us down because what most people attribute, like you said, health to is just feeling good.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's a common misconception.
Or
right?
Looking good. When you look at the word health, we were just talking about this, right? What true health is in the freaking word. It's called HEAL.
Who would have known, right?
It's your body healing.
Yes.
From the inside. We always say your body healing from above down and inside out is what health really is. Yeah. And so as we dive into that and why it is that we're doing the podcast, really the genesis then of happy, healthy, right, begins with your journey. And I guess we both have stories even before that, but let's go back to how this really started with you, and what was it that happened with you?
Yeah, that was really that was a big shift for both of us. Reason being, number one, what I'm about to share my story, but then you being my best friend and went through the journey with me. But it really was starting the birth of Happy Healthy. But July of 2010, as you know, Rob, I was diagnosed with late stage cancer. And it was really devastating because they're telling me, you've got months, maybe a couple of years to live. I was 36 years old and in really great shape. Physically looking at me, you would say, that guy's healthy. In fact, I know this guy to be the guy teaching other people how to be healthy. That's his passion. Yet here I am facing this death sentence. The cancer had spread to my lymphatic chain, my liver, my stomach, very aggressive. And of course, they offered a standard of care, which was, what do you think they offered?
I'm going to say it was probably something to do with the drugs, surgery.
Isn't that frustrating in America? That's how another reason they've let us down is that everything has a pill, a toxin, or some outside in solution to a problem that was never caused by a lack of chemicals. And cancer, what we knew to be true is that cancer wasn't making me sick. I was sick. And that's why I was expressing cancer. So the goal was never to treat the cancer. And, a lot of people who are listening, they either have been directly or indirectly touched by a cancer diagnosis. It's how many people now you get the email, you get the call, you see the text, so-and-so has cancer? And then what does that even mean? So there was a lot of questions that had to be answered for me. But the number one thing that I knew to be true was that my body was designed to be healthy, that health is the normal and diseases like cancer are the abnormal. And that the journey was going to be, how do I get to the cause of why, get my body adapting again to its environment? Because really that's what most disease is. It's a metabolic adaptation where your body is no longer adapting to its environment, whether it's chemically, physically, emotionally, maybe all of that.
Hold on, because we were just talking about that in two things that I want to talk about as we're getting into this is, number one is people will ask the question, well, if they've been diagnosed with cancer, or even if they knew you before you were diagnosed with cancer, they would ask the question, well, how did this happen to you? Or how did this happen to me? And I was reading something even today, and it was from Hippocrates, and we were talking about this a little while ago, but what it says is illnesses, they do not come upon us out of the blue. They're developed from small daily sins against nature. When enough sins have accumulated, illness suddenly appears. So it's like the death by paper cut. Right? It's little things that are done and or not done on a daily basis over time that causes this situation inside the body where the body, like you just said, is no longer adapting. And when you said the word metabolically, and I'm glad you used that word because we use it a lot. However, I think a lot of people don't even understand what the word metabolic or even metabolism means. But what it really means is metabolism is an exchange inside the cells chemically and energetically. In other words, a cell has to change, or it has to utilize energy from some type of source in order to be able to function. So the food that you eat, the thoughts that you think, all those things will cause the cell to respond in a way that's going to be good or bad, which is the adaptation, right? The adaptation,
which is the normal
to the environment.
It's just doing what you say. There's no difference in health and disease, right? It's the body doing the exact thing it should be doing under the environment and the circumstances that it's working with.
Correct.
100%.
So your body was doing something in the way it was adapting.
You got it.
Which was allowing cancer cells to develop inside your body.
Yes.
Correct.
Clearly, because obviously we know that healthy people don't get cancer. And that's a common misconception that like you said, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It doesn't strike the unlucky. It is those little daily sins that Hippocrates so eloquently revealed to us, 400 years BC. Although I hate that they call him the father of modern medicine, because he would be rolling over in his grave. The Hippocratic Oath says, number one, do no harm. And the very first thing they wanted to do to me was give me chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, drug trials, and then hospice care. Had nothing to do with treating me, with treating this condition that was an adaptation metabolically. See if you can imagine if I would have gone through, which clearly I didn't, the standard of care, and left the condition that was not healthy, not adapting, what potentially would have happened. The cancer would have come back, been more aggressive, or I wouldn't have even survived the treatments, which is sad. A lot of people who die from cancer, unfortunately, they're dying from the direct treatment of the condition.
Correct. And I think that where people get that skewed when they say the father, really it was the father of medicine. If you're looking at what's your definition of medicine, really, right? And really, he was a physician, and physician means teacher. So he was teaching people a philosophy of how the body should heal from above down and inside out. And his teachings really are unbelievable. Right. So, all right, let's go back to your cancer. So what kind of cancer did you have?
Yes, it was metastatic melanoma. It was, they gave it a 7-millimeter Breslow. That's how they measured the lesion. And it was on my back. And it started off as like an itch. Then it got to the size of an eraser tip. Before you know it, it's the size of a quarter and a 7 millimeter depth. So at that point, I wanted to finally do something about it, but it wasn't because I believed in anything was serious. I just wanted it cut off, to be honest with you. I just cosmetically, I just wanted it gone.
Okay.
And so I had it cut off. And big mistake, because as soon as they cut off the lesion from my back, the cancer spread. And this is what a lot of people don't know. When you go in and biopsy, when you use surgery to remove these tumors or even treat these tumors chemically, their adaptation is to grow and spread and move throughout the body. So the metastasis is that spreading, and it was caused by the removal of the lesion. Because if you think about it, my body was really doing the right thing. What was it doing? It was walling off the cancer cells and pushing it out of my body. And it was cut off. Now it's in my lymphatics. I mean, you remember in my liver was sticking out of my body, had moved into my stomach. Now I'm not eating. I'm losing weight very quickly. And I was in big trouble. So,
yeah. So you've got this going on.
Yeah.
And did you tell anybody?
I didn't tell anybody. I was ashamed.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you said that, because I think a lot of people go through that because they think that if they've got some kind of illness, well, number one, they don't want to be a burden on anybody else. Yep. And, or they think that somehow whatever the illness is going to somehow go away on its own.
Right.
And even with our backgrounds of being doctors of chiropractic, we were taught, how the body does heal from above down, inside out. And we were treating people.
Yep.
And as we were treating and taking care of people, a lot of times the last person that gets taken care of is
us.
It's us.
It's a huge mistake, right?
Yep.
But our background philosophically in chiropractic and in these principles of above, down, inside out, where we know that the greatest doctor is on the inside, right? That's a powerful thing to understand. I always use the Bible scripture, and it's really not a religious statement, but 1 John 4:4 says that greater is he that's within us than he that's in this world. So when you know the greatest doctor's on the inside, that doctor is going to work for you. It's never trying to kill you. It's always trying to heal you. So the famous quote from Adrian Rogers, the same truth in the light is the same truth in the dark. So nothing had changed. So because of that foundation and wanting to get to the cause and not treat the symptom, which was really the adaptation to cancer, and treat me to get healthy, that led me and you who came with me to Marbella, Spain, and a pretty powerful journey begun there in Spain with Dr. Raymond Helu, a good friend of ours, and somebody who we love and believes and knows these same principles. He was trained medically in Lebanon, but he's a cellular biologist. And so that's really what health is. It all happens at a cellular level. And that was the journey there with him, because in fact, his consultation with me was very short. It was less than 20 seconds. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm over there in Spain and not doing good, not sure if I'm going to even come back, or maybe I'm coming back in a coffin, who knows? But I was there. I believed I needed to be there. And he goes, "I'll do nothing that will kill you." And I'm like, well, thank God, because they couldn't offer me that in America. He goes, "I don't know if you're going to make it." And in fact, he had recently reminded me, and this is a guy who's worked with thousands and thousands of chronically sick and cancer patients, that I was probably 3 of the sickest cancer patients he had ever worked with. And honestly, when he told me, "I don't know that you're going to make it," he really didn't know. But he said, "I'll do everything that I can to get your body adapting again, chemically, physically, and emotionally. I think it's your best chance to overcome the cancer and for it not to come back." And then the best part was, "There's no need for theatrics. Are you ready to get started?" And I'm like, absolutely, let's roll.
You didn't ask him how much it was going to cost, or if your insurance was going to take care
Are
of it.
you in my network? I need more research. But a lot of times we will ask those questions, and they're really bad questions, because really, what does that have to do with the fact that you need to start making changes regardless? And I wasn't interested in just going to any doctor. I wanted to find a doctor who could work within my philosophical beliefs, and that doctor was worth everything.
Which was treating the person,
yes,
and not the cancer. So that's a huge point right there, because even if you look at a medical model or an insurance-based model,
Yep.
guess what? In order for an insurance to actually pay for your treatment, you have to first have a diagnosis or a disease that can be treated with a medicine. So if you don't have one of those things, right, what are you going to actually treat? And so that's why those are bad questions, because it should be, what are you going to do to be able to make sure that my body is healing and adapting to whatever the issues are going on, so my body can actually beat this on its own, so that this thing doesn't ever come back.
Yeah, no doubt. We needed to find out what was going on at a cellular level that was causing this expression of sickness called cancer. And so when you look at that, that's really what we did. And all the treatments that I used over there were all addressing cellular problems. In fact, if you remember from the blood work, they had found that I was into an autoimmune condition where my white blood cells, like the immune cells, like the Pac-Man cells that eat up all the bad stuff, they were actually turning against me and eating my healthy red blood cells. So how in the world are you going to carry oxygen when your own cells that carry the oxygen are being eaten by your immune system? On top of that, my red blood cells were crystallizing. I was so inflamed, they were crystallizing. And so because they were crystallized, they couldn't hold or carry oxygen. So when they would draw my blood was brown. Your blood shouldn't be brown. Oxygenated blood is full of oxygen and it's bright red, which is why the heart is the only organ in the body that doesn't get cancer, because it's constantly pumping oxygenated blood all day long.
And I think that's something for people to really understand, is that when you look at our body is nothing more than a big mass of cells, right?
Yeah, what, trillions of cells.
Trillions of cells, right?
Yes.
So with these cells, you have to make sure that the nutrients that are going into the body can be able to pass in and out of those cells, chemically speaking, which is what it is that you're talking about.
Right.
So if the cell is then crystallized, and nothing can actually get into the cell.
You got it.
And then also toxins or metabolically toxic waste inside the cell can't get out either.
Right.
So
oxygen's not getting in.
Yes.
Toxins aren't getting out, much less any nutrition that needed to be absorbed into the cell wasn't getting into the cell. And so you think about, you've got this cellular mess that's not adapting, that's unhealthy. And can you imagine if they'd have just treated the tumor and the cancer and left me metabolically sick?
Yeah, you would have still had the same mess.
You got it.
So let's say, hypothetically speaking, they were able to kill off the cancer cells.
Right.
However, the environment that allowed that to happen in the first place is still there. Guess what's coming back?
Oh, it's coming back, and it's going to come back with a vengeance, and which typically you'll see happen is you'll have multiple times. If you survive the first round, it will come back, which is why they base survival rates off of 5 years. For example, one of my aunts years ago passed away from cancer, but she really passed away from the treatment of cancer, because the first time she had the cancer, they treated her with chemotherapy. She went into remission. They announced her cancer-free.
Well, they didn't treat her with chemotherapy. They treated the cancer with chemotherapy and did nothing to actually treat her.
Unfortunately, they were treating her with the chemotherapy and the cancer. That's the way you can actually truly heal, is for the cancer to fully die from chemotherapy. You have to sacrifice your own life, unfortunately.
True.
But the cancer came back and then did the same thing again. Then it moved and came back a third time. And so she passed away 5 years, I think, and 4 months after her original diagnosis with the first cancer. So that counted as a cure, although she had cancer 3 different times, 3 different rounds of treatments with cancer moving everywhere, but she made it past the 5-year survival rate, which is ridiculous to me. So going back to, I didn't want to survive, Rob, right? I wanted to thrive. I wanted to adapt, heal, get to the cause, come out of this thing stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so basically within weeks, I started responding and getting better. The treatments, I felt like I could run through a brick wall once you start getting oxygen back in your body and getting toxins out of your system.
So let's talk about that. Because I know people always ask the question, what are some of the things that they did. Obviously it was looking at your body, making sure that your body was healing better. But what are a couple of the things that they did, for example, that would be different than what it is that is done here?
Yeah. So let's go back to the blood where, I had the issues there and my blood was not carrying oxygen. Is they used a therapy called ozone therapy. So they would draw my blood and you could see it going down the tube brown, and then they would flush it full of ozone, which basically is donating oxygen to the blood, and it would absorb it and become bright red. Mm-hmm. And then they would flush that same red blood that was full of oxygen back into my body in a closed circuit. So systemically across the body, I'm absorbing all this blood with oxygen. And that was done over multiple treatments, and there's no side effects or deleterious effects that are causing harm to me because you're just giving the body usable oxygen. So how cool is that? I literally felt like I could run through a brick wall after getting an infusion of ozone. And that's not a treatment they typically would ever do. When I say typically, I don't know that any oncologist trained in Western medicine would even have the training, number one, or even recommend a treatment like that. And it's way more cost effective than a chemotherapy based, treatment where you're using toxic chemicals and hurting the body, killing the cancer, yes, but also killing the healthy cells as well, where the ozone didn't do that. I also used, which was my favorite treatments, was hyperthermia. And it was basically oncological hyperthermia will heat your body up internally to high temperature. Mm-hmm. Well, why would you do that? Well, that's a great question. Have you ever heard of a fever? Exactly. Exactly. Like a fever is good. The fever is the body not doing the wrong thing. It's the body doing the right thing. Because at high temperature, bacteria and viruses can't survive. Cancer cells can't survive. You kick out interferon, which destroys cancer cells. I believe even the way they discovered improved hyperthermia was almost on accident, because it was a village in Italy where they had high malaria rates because they had a lot of stagnant swamps where mosquitoes would fester and build and grow. And so, like all the smart people, we get smarter than God. Let's just drain all the swamps, right? And get rid of all the mosquitoes. And that way we can fix the malaria. So they did all that, and malaria cases did drop. But what they found was in a village where they had some of the lowest cancer rates in the world, that cancer rates came back up to what would be typical in a normal population, because when you have malaria, you run lots of high fevers, and the high fevers were strengthening the immune system. So that's essentially what they were doing with me, was building and strengthening my immune system so the cancer cells would not adapt very well, which is interesting because that cancer cells really aren't that smart. They're very rudimentary. They don't like much change. You can change an environment for a cancer cell and they'll tap out pretty quickly. I remember there was research done where they took a healthy cell and they had attached it to like 3 different types of cancer cells, thinking that the healthy cell would die and the cancer cells would thrive. Actually, the healthy cell dominated the cancer cells and thrived, which was basically saying that healthy cells are genetically superior to a cancer cell.
So, okay. So what you're saying then, okay, I like that you said as far as they don't like change, because even we were talking about that earlier, the word metabolism actually means to change.
Yes, so talk about that, because even the genesis of the word, or the Latin meaning of the word metabolism, it ties right into this whole thing with my journey, what we teach. Because, a lot of people know us as like the metabolism experts or the weight loss gurus or whatever, but we're really more about getting to the cause and teaching true health principles, because when you can learn and implement that, you can overcome anything. And that's the power of what we can accomplish, because the power within our body, Rob, you can't gloss over it.
You can.
And we do all the time. We do. And the system does all the time.
Totally. And I look at the word metabolism all kinds of different ways, but meta means over, and where they get bole, it means to change, which actually comes from baleen. Baleen means overthrow. So it's really, or it means to throw.
Okay.
So if you put meta with that baleen, it means to overthrow. And so that's where it actually comes from. And so I look at it as the body overthrowing the disease inside the body, or overthrowing what people traditionally would think about as far as, quote, modern medicine actually being. So I like that you said that, But I also like that you gave some examples of some of the things that you did for the purpose of making sure that your body was healing from the inside out, to give people a glimpse of that. And I can say firsthand that the difference in the way you looked, your appearance, your health, your energy, your attitude was completely different from the time that you went to Spain, because I saw you before you went, and you were like a gray blue color. You weren't eating, you weren't holding down food.
Wasn't good.
And I didn't see you until you had already been in Spain for a couple of weeks.
Right.
So once I finally get there and I saw you, you look like a completely different person. You look like you again. And that was only after 2 weeks.
2 weeks versus, can you imagine if I'd have been hooked up to a chemo pump or going through toxic treatments for 2 weeks? I can promise you, I wasn't going to look healthier than I did when you saw me when I left. So the whole thing was about not treating the cancer, but treating the person, treating me, using the healing powers of our body to overcome the cancer. And that's what the ozone treatment was doing. The body needs oxygen. We'll give it oxygen, right? Fevers are healthy, raising my immune system. Cancer couldn't survive. Healthy cells thrive under high heat. So those two treatments were pretty powerful, and they aligned with me philosophically, because I knew, oh, this is cool. We're working with the doctor on the inside. I want that doctor to have every advantage possible, because that doctor is the smartest doctor in the world. And we don't even, what's the quote, that we put more faith in a teaspoonful of medicine than the power that made our body. Big mistake.
It's a huge mistake. And so I don't want to gloss over this, because I think it's probably even more important than the treatment that was given to you. It was really a mindset, right?
Yeah.
Mindset is huge. We're talking even about the body metabolically speaking, and the composition of the cells inside the body. Well, part of that is energy. There's positive and negative charges. There's energy. What we now know, based on the research that they've done, is that you can actually change the vibration of the cells and the energy of the cells with your thoughts. If you look at Bruce Lipton's work, for example, read the book Biology of Belief, we know that you can change the inside of the body just by what it is that you're putting into your brain, the thoughts that you're thinking, the words that are coming out of your mouth. And I know that you went through a low point when you were not just diagnosed as far as your mindset goes, because, you know, from the very beginning, you're like, why did this happen to me? And then when you got to Spain, where did the shift happen for you mindset wise, or just kind of talk us through that?
Yeah. I love bringing up Bruce Lipton's work, how you can, you know, the epigenetic component of how you express your genetic code, and it's directly influenced by your thoughts and your mindset, which is huge. So I was aware, I'd read that book years prior and really understood a little bit of the concept of that. So I was very keenly aware that I had to control my thoughts, that if I had any chance of making it, no matter what I did, that I was going to have to see myself getting healthy.
Yeah. And that's some scary shit too, though, because anytime you have any kind of a health problem, if you were in pain, if there's any kind of disease process going on, your brain can literally go down the crazy train really quickly.
What do you think I'm thinking when they're using the word, this is lethal?
Sure.
When they're telling me you've got 2 months, maybe 2 years, what if I was hearing that every single day and thinking about that?
Let's start believing it.
You start creating more disease in the body. You can think yourself sick. You can think yourself healthy. And so that was another reason why I wanted to leave the country and get away from anybody that could potentially plant those seeds of it was a lie. Because I believed, the doubt, the seeds of doubt, the seeds of fear. You don't heal and vibrate at a high level when you're living in doubt, when you're living in fear. Of course, we know that fear will scramble the part of your brain called the amygdala, which is where you use logic and where you use reason. And I was in a place I needed to have the most clear mind ever, use my logic, use my reason, ask the right questions to get to a real answer and a real solution. So I was, as I went to Spain, I was aware of this, but I was struggling. I was there alone. You hadn't got there yet. And I was going into some really dark places, I call it my cancer pity party, because I'm like, you know, how this happened to me? You know, I'm the health guy and I look healthy. And as you know, you don't feel disease building in your body until it's too late a lot of times. But I was trying to snap out of it. So I didn't know what to do. So I woke up on a Sunday morning and I remember I had to break the pattern. So I got in my car. It was actually called a car. It was about, the car weighed probably 100 pounds.
We could have freaking moved that thing around.
We could lift it over my head 3 times.
We were talking about that yesterday. I actually had a dream last night. This is for real.
Yeah.
But I actually had taken the car and moved it like from one place to the next with my hands.
Can you teach me how to put it into reverse? That's a whole nother podcast. Whole other story. But so I got in my car and I just started driving south. And I just wanted to break the pattern. So I drove to the very southern tip of Spain. It's a famous kite surfing beach called Tarifa. And it was beautiful, Rob. You didn't get to see it, but I'm looking around. You've got the mountains. You can see Morocco from the coast. I'm looking into Africa. You've got the beautiful water, the rocks, the beautiful people, the beautiful sky. You're breathing all this fresh air. And I'm thinking, wow, this is so incredible. I needed to get out of my rut and to see this. And then I really heard from God. Have you ever had a time in your life where you hear from God? It's almost like we're talking right now. It was that real to me. And I heard him say, Randy, it's kind of like, it's so cute that you're so impressed with the water and the mountains and the rocks and the beauty in Morocco. He goes, but I didn't make any of that in my image. I made you. I made you directly in my image. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And it was very specific. He said, you're not going to die. You're going to live and you're going to tell of the works of the Lord. And I was like, oh my God, thank you, Lord. Like, oh my God, like seriously, oh my God, thank you, Lord. And it was a huge moment for me. My whole mindset just completely moved to seeing and believing and knowing that I was going to get well. And it wasn't just about getting well. It was about, what am I going to do now coming out of this that's going to help impact others and give them the same faith, confidence, and belief to know that they're fearfully and wonderfully made as well. And that the greatest doctor is also within them. And that if I can overcome late stage cancer naturally and using my own body's ability to heal, there's nothing that they couldn't overcome as well. And that was really I think the point where the healing really, really took place.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's huge right there. And it's really just having that belief, right? Or that hope that you were gonna make it through. Heck, that's why I've got a tattoo right here on my arm that says hope.
Yeah.
You know, when you have hope, you have direction, you have faith that whatever it is that happens is going to work out for the greater good.
The hope is the key.
Yeah. Ultimately for the greater good being a higher purpose.
No doubt. It's hope when you don't have hope, or when you've lost hope and you've gotten to a place where you feel hopeless, you're in huge trouble. So the mindset around it is incredibly important. We were talking earlier even about the study where they took the mice, they put them in a tub of water. They'd put one in a tub of water, close the door, and completely dark, black, no light. And the mouse would only swim, I want to say, for a few minutes. And don't quote me on the exact numbers on this, but I think the point is very important, is the mouse wouldn't swim very long because in the complete darkness, the mouse lost hope. They did the same experiment. They took the mouse, put it in the same type of a tub in the same type of a room. This time they cracked the door and there was light coming into the room. This mouse, I want to say, would swim for 2 and 3 days before it would die. So just minutes before you tap out and quit versus days. And the only difference was the light and the hope that there was going to be a better outcome for them in the future if they kept fighting, if they kept believing.
Yeah. So I think that right there is a good place for us to stop.
Yeah.
So there's not
we
much
could keep going.
There's not much to be said, because that really right there is the point of why we wanted to do the Happy Healthy Life podcast. And we'll talk about it in later episodes, even my struggle with health. And we wanted to be able to use the Happy Healthy Life podcast as a guide and or hope for people to be able to see that there are solutions. There are solutions to your problems that you've got going on from a health perspective, and you can overcome those things. And so that's why we're doing what it is that we're doing. Next week's podcast, you're not going to want to miss that one. We're going to also be talking about like one of the programs that we've got, and we're always doing our own programs just to be able to see how we can make them better, and how it is that I was even able to lose 25 pounds utilizing our program and get
in
myself
a very short amount of time,
7% body fat. Why I even needed to lose 25 pounds and how that actually happens. We'll talk about that. We'll answer some questions from the listeners, the viewers, give you guys what it is that you want. If you guys have any questions, you can always hit us up on social media at the Happy Healthy Guys, happyhealthycentral.com. Anything that you need, we're there for you. Any questions that you have. So I just want to say thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Any departing words? Yeah.
No, I definitely want to say, hey, listen, if you liked anything that we said today, we would ask you to please share this message, because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting. They need somebody who can listen, that can hear them, who can feel their pain and point them in the right direction. So if you liked anything about what we said, if you think it was of any value, please share what we talked about today, and then tune in again for next week's, because we are going to reveal some key metabolic things you have to know that are life-changing. And to be honest with you, they're so simple.
Absolutely. So you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at The Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.